Hey guys, this is lesson 11, how to pre-compose a timeline. Now what pre-composing is basically is selecting all your goods in the timeline and grouping into one bit of footage. Why is this important? Well, you might have a little scene that you're working on. Let's just say our sepia scene here, for example. And you might only want that scene to appear in a greater timeline. So what the advantage of pre-composing and grouping is you can double click back into that file and make the adjustments like you can see here, but as you see on the master timeline it will just appear as a single piece of film footage. So let's explain that a bit better this way. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new canvas, and a canvas is basically a new workspace, and this is going to be our master timeline file. So let's go composition, let's go sorry, I forgot my shortcuts. New composition. We're going to call this master timeline. All the attributes normally are the same as the last time you put them in, so let's just assume they're all good. And you'll see a blank canvas. Now, what we want to do is, this is our master timeline where we're going to drop in our pre-composed group files, or you can also call them just scenes, containing all your little hard work. So you might have on your master timeline 5 seconds of this footage, 5 seconds of that footage, that you've done particular work on or effects on a more detailed timeline like this. So you can make adjustments, you can make wholesale adjustments on the whole, all this stuff, rather than getting in there and moving parts individually. So it's pretty handy. So let's just bring this down. Let's just bring our timeline down a little. By grabbing the end of there, we're just going to use this as a sample. So we want a 5-second sample of what's just happened there. Okay. So what we do is we go select just by holding shift and grabbing them all. Now you can either right click and go pre-compose, or control if you're on a keyboard, or you can go layer pre-compose, and you'll get this window coming up. So this is asking you, what do you want to call this group of objects? Let's just call it sepia steak, right? And these little buttons here, there'll be some options there. Move all attributes into the new composition. Yes, we want to do that, so leave that checked. Adjust competition duration to the time span of the selected layers. So that means whatever time we've allocated here to layers, we want to keep it. So just leave that as ticked, and we go OK. And you'll notice it's all now one file. So now what that means is we can go back to our master timeline, or just click on the tab here. It'll make a new tab every time you start a new composition, and if you want to move it left and right, you can just click and drag left and right. Now we want to grab out of our list here our sepia steak composition, and there it is. So that's now one piece of footage transportable as one piece of film strip. Now say we want to go in there and make edits, we want to change the tint. We would simply double click into the pre-composition file and we'd open up our old window there. So as we set this up on adjustment layers, we would just, click out of that. We would go over here, get our effects back up, or just drop down the menu here where all the effects will also sit. Remember that effects will appear up in this controls window, or just under your regular timeline drop down window. So tint, we're going to change it to, say, let's just go pink. What the hell. Yeah, okay. Then we click back over here onto our master timeline, and we'll see that it's made the live updates. Now, the other advantage of grouping all your objects into one timeline is that you might want to make a really basic zoom of this footage. For example, a zoom or an action move. Now, if you were trying to do that to, going back to this part, if you were trying to do that to, how many layers we've got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You would have to apply a zoom or a rotation to all 5 layers, and they would all have to syncopate at the same time. So nobody wants to do that, and neither does this CPU. That's why we make pre-composed files or smart objects for After Effects, whatever way you want to look at them. So now we can just make action moves on top of the whole assembly. So let's just start with the rotation, for example. We want to have it spin once by the 5-second mark, and we play it, and it is a little clunky clunky rendering that one in because there's lots of effects on it, like grain and whatnot, but you know what's going to happen. It will play out and rotate once, so it's very handy. Again, that would be rather time consuming if you were going to do all that into each file, and absolutely no point trying to do that either, of course. So let's just pretend all our master footage is going to turn up on this timeline, and we want to make a new composition again for another scene. So we'll just make another new composition, or Apple N, and let's call this fire scene, and that means we're going to do something with that fire, as you guessed. And we've got a new scene here, blank footage. Click in your project window and go Command 0, or just go, you can probably get it back up in the view there. And let's go into our effect footage and drag. Let's drag, there it is, the fire. So we've got a bit of fire there, and let's just pretend we like that. What else do we want on top of that? Let's put some dust on there too. Fire and dust go well together. Let's just make that a screen layer. Again, if you can't see that, the screen and normal options here, just make sure this is toggled. This will switch between your timeline controls. Very handy switch. Alright, so we've got dust and fire. And there's no need to pre-compose because we've already, by setting up a fire scene as a new composition, it's already put itself into a new composition. So when you do select pre-compose, as we did before, you're essentially just making a new canvas that you can, a new draggable canvas. So what I mean by that is you can now just drag fire scene, what we just did then, into your dock, and there it is. And it just helps condense all your footage down into simple little bits of film strip, and is a lot easier to manage when you're getting closer to the finish line of getting your video into shape to export as a final product. Let's just click into that again. I'm going to try something else quickly here. You can also apply, as we did in other layers, the same thing with effects. So we might want to apply some new effects to everything underneath it. That could be a tint, for example. So we just dial up tint, and we want to make that, let's just say, pink, because the other one was too. And you go back to your master timeline, and it's all updated. So in short, pre-composing is collecting films together and turning them into little bits of film strip, which you'll see here, that you can manage and manipulate around. And again, once you've got your film strip, you've got all your new action items you can apply to that as well. So you might want to zoom in the fire, for example, which just saves you a bit of time. So that's basically how we group everything. It does chew up a little more memory pre-composing, but it is definitely worth it if you're on really large projects, and highly recommend that you get your minds into doing this, because when you're doing presentations, for example, you might simply name one timeline scene 1, which could be the logo reveal and title slide, and you want to name the second composition scene 2 or scene 3, blah blah blah, and then it's very easy to manage and pull around the timeline. If you need to move scene 3 down the other end, you can literally just drag it, and it's got all your parts in there, so it's quite portable and very, very useful. So that is pre-composing.